This is a response to Piro314, your video about vegetarianism there, Piro. I think for me there's three aspects to that video. One is to do with, I guess, kind of implementation, the stuff about whether vegetarians are strident or dictatorial, what kinds of, how it interfaces with legality and the law and social controls. Then there's something to do with different kinds of solutions, if we do acknowledge that there's some kind of ethical problem there, which some people wouldn't, but I think you do. What kind of solutions we might bring to that. And then I think there's something to do with mythology there as well. And let me just see if I can take that a bit at a time. I mean, the first thing is to do with, dictatorial vegetarians. The idea being that if vegetarians ruled the world, what kind of world would they implement? And I think you do mention the law at one point. I mean, I wouldn't want to speak for all vegetarians, but certainly all the ones I know, and what you said there, Piro, all the ones you know, tend not to be, politically conservative, tend not to be fascist about in terms of their approach to politics, and that certainly doesn't reflect my opinions and desires, because we come into this world that all of us got a whole lot of kind of ethical and moral and political viewpoints, don't we? And certainly in my case, yes, I have an ethical standpoint in relation to dietary practice, but I also have an ethical standpoint in relation to relation to governance and to relationship to how laws are produced and how states operate. And for me, it would be a far greater evil to institute the kind of police state you would need to make something like vegetarian compulsory. That would be a far greater evil than what's going on at the moment, for all kinds of reasons, quite apart from it being completely impractical. Certainly I'm living in the UK, and we've tried to ban fox hunting here a few years ago. It was a complete disaster. And I mean, if we can't, it's just completely moribund as a set of a piece of legislation. So if we can't even manage that, I mean, God knows how we'd manage something like meat eating. So no, there's the practical aspects of that, but more importantly, there's the ethics of how you go about instituting a law in the first place. No, it's a hearts and minds operation, not a legal operation. Okay, then what's the other thing? Oh, then there's this to do with different kinds of relationship to that. I mean, you cited what I guess would be something like open range farming, something like that, or game reserves, where you come to a place a little bit like this, possibly. This is a country park called Brayton in Cheshire, where I walk my dog sometimes. Very nice. Anyway, so you come to a place like this, and there would be restrictions on what you could do. You couldn't place snares in here, but you could come in here with a bow and arrow, and if I saw a rabbit over there, I could twang it, and that would be mine, so the rabbit would live in a state of nature until the moment of its killing by a superior and more powerful animal. So it's not, we're kind of putting ourselves into that loop. I mean, that's one option, and it's probably, well, it might be better than factory farming. I'll come on to that in a minute. But there's other options as well, isn't there? People have talked about raising animals in vats. I don't know if that's even viable, but who knows? Or people have talked about really, really plush slaughterhouses, more like a really upmarket zoo, where the animals are almost kind of pets. So they stay there until they're slaughtered, so they have a really great life. What's another alternative? Oh, something like scavenging. Someone in the comments in one of my videos mentioned if you found an animal that died of a heart attack, would that be okay to eat it? That's another option, isn't it? Roadkill. I mean, it's funny that, because we tend to regard animals that feed on carrion, things like vultures and hyenas and those kind of animals, as kind of I don't know. We've got very negative feelings about animals that feed on the dead flesh of other animals. But in terms of what we're talking about, or in terms of my approach to this, which is to do with the alleviation of suffering and so on, then that seems like slightly less detrimental. So there might be something in that. Yeah, so there's a range of options, and I'm not particularly absolutist myself. I think anything that reduces the load on on animal suffering has got to be a good thing. So whether that, so if hunting did that, or if any other solutions I mentioned did that, that would be certainly a step in the right direction, wouldn't it? Or just being a weekend vegetarian or a weekend carnivore. There's a new book out based on a TED talk I saw recently, which is about being a weekend carnivore. So you don't have to take quite such a dramatic step, you know, you're vegetarian through the week and eat meat at the weekends. Yeah, all steps in the right direction, I guess. I mean, just in terms of animal welfare, I mean, and you do say that you're very strongly opposed to industrialised factory farming, and I would agree with that. Possibly not for the same reasons as you, though, because you put in its place preferentially the kind of, as I say, the game reserve option. But I don't think that's really the same, a fair comparison. Because the major problems with factory farming, quite apart from, given that the animals suffer and die in both situations, in fact they probably suffer slightly more in game reserves, individual animals, it's probably more painful to stagger around with an arrow sticking out your side for a few hours than it is to have the bolt gun to the forehead thing. But you know, that particular moment of the process aside, there are a lot of problems with industrial processes, aren't there? The first being the fact that it's industrial scale, the sheer number of animals that go through that. 20 billion animals last year apparently. And that's large animals, not like fish, but, you know, sizable creatures. 20 billion. That's a problem. But also the fact that animals are kind of industrially inseminated specifically into that process, which is commodification of life itself, not just commodification of death, but commodification of the life. So that seems pretty odd to me. And as I say, just the scale of it. So I share your reservations with some aspects of industrial scale production, but on a numbers, but mainly for me, I think it's just because of a numbers basis. You know, the sheer number of animals that go through industrial processes is a problem. On an individual animal basis, the amount of suffering and death that an animal experiences in a well-run industrial plant is probably less than an animal, as I say, shot in the wild. We have a kind of romantic idea of nature, don't we? But I'm sure it's not that much fun if you're bleeding to death in a ditch somewhere. Anyway, so that's something to do with that. Yeah, and this other thing is to do with myth, really. And this relates to what you're talking about there, Piero, to do with the game reserve option. You know, because it is very attractive, that idea, and several people have commented on quite a few of my videos, saying that they think it's okay if they hunt it, or they would like it if they hunt it, or kind of converse versions of that people wouldn't eat meat if they saw what happens in slaughterhouses, with the implication being that they wouldn't mind if they saw it in a different context. And it's bound up with the naturalist fallacy that what is natural is good, but it's also, I think, a terribly romantic version of what nature is like. Really kind of Rousseauian, you know, savage naturalness about it, which, you know, all of us have got a hankering for. You know, and sometimes it shows up in us as a kind of new agey, vaguely kind of Pandora-esque, Lion King, Circle of Life kind of romantic attachment to it, and sometimes it shows up as a much more libertarian, conservative, I don't know what you'd call it really, rugged individualism, you know, the kind of badass approach I've mentioned in previous videos. It's that kind of hankering to identify oneself closely with nature. But it's all, I think it's all, to say this, I think it's all bullshit, that really, and bravado, and a kind of nostalgia for a time that's probably not only is lost, but was probably never there in the first place. Because we're not, you know, we are, whether we like it or not, you know, we are sentient creatures. And we're not just sentient, we're conscious creatures. And we're not just conscious, you know, we're conscious, rational creatures with the ability to reason, the ability to share reason with one another through language, through this process, the ability to debate and evolve our reasoning capacities and evolve the ethics out of that reasoning capacities and discover ethical solutions that we're not even capable of recognising as problems before. You know, once you've got that, you know, once you've got that capacity which has been foisted on us, you know, whatever it was 100,000 years ago, 40,000 years ago, once you get that, which we as humans have, then, you know, it's a game changer, isn't it really? It's a complete game changer. You know, we have eaten of the tree of the, what is it, the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You know, we don't just lumber through this world doing these activities, just behaving, doing what comes naturally. And some of that doing what comes naturally has positive impact on the plants and animals and the environment around us, and some of it has negative impacts, but we don't know about that because we're just doing what comes natural. That's not our position, you know. We have this knowledge of good and evil, and we know, and we can know that this is the case, and that once you know those things, there's no going back, you know, there's no going back. However much we might be nostalgic and sort of whimsically attracted to that mythology, you know, we haven't been stardust for 10 billion years, and we're certainly not golden, and we ain't going back to the garden. So we just have to kind of grow up, I think. This is my attitude. We just have to kind of grow up and set aside those childish things. Recognise that the lust for nature, the lust to get back in the garden and hunt things with bows and arrows, like our forefathers are supposed to have done, is just that, you know. We're singing the songs of innocence and experience, aren't we? And we need to move on with that, really, I think. Yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense. Anyway, that's kind of where I am. So just to close, no, I would, if I ruled the world, every day would not be the first day of spring, and I would not command that everyone do exactly as I do. But I would hope that we could all help each other do the right thing. That's what I would hope. I mean, that's, in a sense, that's why one of the things I like about this media. I thought I'd finish back. I'm quite. In one of my videos recently, a vegetarian video, somebody left a comment, a bit of a snarky comment, but it's fine, saying something like, "Oh, it's all right for you to talk, but you drive a car all the time, and that's really damaging, isn't it?" And I didn't respond because it was off topic. But the person was absolutely right. You know, absolutely right. You know, and if that person or someone else made a series of videos talking about how ethically non-viable people, high mileage motorists like myself, 1,000 miles a week, how ethically compromising that is, and how, you know, it's not a good idea, I would feel very uncomfortable about that. Would it be a good thing? You know, it would be a good thing for me to be made uncomfortable about that. You know, and I would probably make a few videos in response, kind of apologising for myself, or maybe talking about hypermiling, or talking about alternative fuel sources, talking about biodiesel or hybrid car. I would probably try to find all kinds of apologetics for high mileage motoring. But really, I would be having my conscience pricked, and that would be a good thing. You know, we should be one another's conscience in a way, and if that comes off as strident, it is, you know, and it would come off to me as strident, I'm sure, if people made those videos. That would be a sign that my conscience was indeed being pricked. And I wouldn't, of course, I wouldn't want anybody to legislate that, and would resist the kind of Stalinist police state which stopped me driving, because it would stop me going to work apart from anything else. But it would keep it on the front burner. You know, it would keep me thinking. Yeah, I really need to do something about that, actually. I would need to do something about that. Anyway, no noble savages running in these woods. There's a few rabbits, there's not much, there's no big stuff here really. A few rabbits, and that's about it. I think there's some badgers over the far end over behind these trees. Anyway, that'll do, I think. A long video, sorry about that, 1406. Just want to say a little bit more onto this last video to yourself there, Piro, which is to do with this process of sharing our ethical ideas with one another, which I'm kind of thinking of as crowdsourcing enlightenment, in the kind of best traditions of the rational enlightenment, not the spiritual sense, or the worst traditions of the rational enlightenment. But, you know, we're trying to just up each other's ethical game and rational game a wee bit. But one of the things that I would want to do, and I'm not saying I'm achieving this, is just to change the current a little bit in people's thinking. I mean, this thing Gary talked about, which I thought was a really great example actually, which is, you know, you're walking down the road and there's a bug crossing the path in front of you, And you have a choice, you know, you can either step on the bug or you can step over the bug. There's no effort, additional effort in either of those actions. What do? It takes no effort at all to step over the bug. So you would do it. I mean, why wouldn't you do it? The only reason you would not do that, in fact there isn't any reason not to. You know, it's a no-brainer. And I would want to try to address those tiny little choices. I'm not interested in big legislation and the institution of a vegetarian police state or any of that kind of stuff. But I would love to think that it was possible just to influence those little tiny choices in a kind of butterfly effect way. You know, so you're in the supermarket and there's tins of, in your country you had baked beans and vegetarian baked beans. An alien concept in the UK. All baked beans in the UK are vegetarian, unless they've got sausages in. But in the States you can buy baked beans which have got bacon fat in, I think, and then there's a vegetarian ones. You can't tell the difference in terms of taste, I am pretty damn sure. But you know, so as you're reaching towards the cans, you know, which one do you go for? And I would really like it if not just myself but a whole set of vegetarian discourses just caused that tiny quantum scale change, so that hand drifts towards the vegetarian baked beans. Just that one action would be great. You know, or you're in the chiller aisle or the frozen food aisle and there's vegetarian burgers and there's meat hot dogs, and there's those smart dogs. Smart dogs are really nice. And you just reach for the smart dogs. Just really easy. It's not a big action, it's not a big commitment, it's not a big lifestyle change. It's just a slight movement of a hand 4 inches to the right. That's all it takes. You know, and just that happening once a week or once a month or once in a lifetime is a little thing. You know, it's a little thing. And I think those things are really useful. That's it. It's a very low ambition threshold I've got here. Smart dog. Yeah.